Hello, Echo Units. My name is Rox Titan, and today I'm going to go over a match that happened during week, I believe, 8 of Echo Arena VRML between Skull-Crusaders and Nova. So let's get into the clips. First clip, you see Nova controlling the disc. It gets picked off by Oculus-Sator, takes a shot, gets re-picked by Dimwe, then passes it up to his teammate, and they're able to get the disc in the offensive zone. So this is pretty good disc control by the side of Nova controlling the disc. Little bit of miscommunication here. This player can't really be seen by the disc holder, so they need to let him know that he's covered. And I guess this player may not have even known that he was covered either. He could have been calling for it, but definitely making sure that you know whether or not you're being covered. They do recover it though, and something that Nova does really well is even though they gave what was a pretty could have been a pretty dire turnover, they're able to recover quickly and then pass the disc out because you can notice that even though they're passing the zone, just because he's clearing it here, what this player probably would have done is either would have, if he would have gotten the disc, he probably would have passed it over here, or he just would have cleared it himself. Either way, you can see here, these two players were kind of coming together for a boost, but they didn't totally commit to it yet. You can see Dimwe went for an anchor instead of going just straight for his teammate here, and that helped him out because he was able to get to this disc here. Another thing that Nova does well is that even though they did make this turnover, they didn't immediately all collapse. You can see this player over here especially still just keeps moving in the tunnel, and he's waiting so when his team does get it, because if this player had like tried to turn around and double boost backwards, he wouldn't have been able to get there. He wouldn't have affected the outcome of this play, whether either it went in or Dimwe is able to get the stop. So instead, he just keeps moving. He anchors himself on one of the blocks in the tunnel, so that as soon as they do recover the disc, he's able to be an open pass, and he's able to transition the disc into the offensive zone. So it's a really good job by Nova. Can first controlling the disc, and then able to recover from what could have been a pretty big steal for Skull-Crusaders. So let's get on them. Second clip. You can see Filibust here with the disc. He kind of holds onto the disc a little bit because he's not being pressured. He does finally get some pressure on. Oculus is able to get a punch out, and then they can transition down to the next zone. It does get picked, unfortunately, but what they do here is really, really good because you can notice here is that he's not. The map's not up, but he's not getting pressured here. He's got this one player who stopped on double diamonds just now, so he's going to hold the disc. He's going to wait. You can see his teammates are slowly moving around, getting open. Akisato gets a punch. Now that the player's stunned, they can move up. They can try and move up, and they do have to get it together, and the play does end up going badly for them. But the patience that they had before they, instead of just like getting because a lot of teams have been conditioned sort of to where they get the disc and they throw it as fast as possible because they're scared of the PE joust coming through and rushing them really quickly. He recognizes he's not getting rushed, and he's able to stop down, wait for his teammates to make an opening. In that case, the opening is right here, this punch, and then they're able to move it down the floor. So up until that last pass, it was a really good play from Skull-Crusaders. Next clip going on. Filibust with the disc again. This time, Nova with the defensive chain does get stunned out eventually, and Skull-Crusaders is able to move it up. Again, Filibust being really taking his time, being careful, looking that he's realizing that even though Nova does actually have a defensive chain here. So the defensive chain, something that Nova did kind of wrong here, is they've got the defensive chain, they're pushing the QB. The QB doesn't feel any pressure, and so he's not just throwing the disc immediately for them to chase it. They do get the stun on this player, and at that point, they should rush the disc or at least rush the disc and then grab off on this part of Bowtie. Because if they boost towards him, they get like only one grab. He has to react to that. If he still tries and holds it and like calls the bluff, then he's got huge balls. But if they get the stun on this player and then they boost to this side of Bowtie, they're not at risk of getting stunned by this player, and he's gonna have to make the pass. And as soon as he makes the pass, if they grab off on this part of Bowtie, they can chase the pass immediately, and all of a sudden they're putting a bunch of pressure on Skull-Crusaders to be able to control the disc. And until this chain gets punched out, they have a really good chance of getting an interception here, chasing the disc down, getting a punch off, and having a really good position for themselves potentially. But instead of going forward, especially after they get this stun, they kind of backed up a little bit. They moved back to double diamonds, they wait a little bit, and that leaves Oculusator a chance to go out and break the chain up. Because the biggest weakness of a defensive chain is that if the offense can control the disc well enough and bait you and get you the chain broken like they did here, then the chain is all of a sudden a really weak play because these players are now separated. This player's kind of getting left behind. There's not really anything he's covering. He has to try to just draw back as fast as he can, and Skull-Crusaders can move up. So again, good play from Skull-Crusaders, just being patient and recognizing they're not under that much pressure. And then Nova, just a slight misplay here that could have been a lot of pressure for them, especially after that stun, but they unfortunately didn't capitalize on it. I'll go to the next clip. This time it's a Nova joust, or Nova, not a Nova joust, but a Nova rollout. They got one player staying back here. They pass to. This allows Isen to break up the chain, and then Nova moves it down the field. You're controlling the disc a little bit. Zesper not feeling any pressure, then passes it to his teammate, who's pretty quickly covered. Pass goes back to Zesper, and Zesper moves forward and gets punched out, and the clear ends up getting through. But so two things I really wanted to point out in this clip are one that Nova has a pretty unique rollout here that I'm actually a really big fan of, because the player moves up, he challenges the chain, and then he passes it back. And what happens when he does that is that he's putting him. So usually the idea of a defensive chain in this position is that you're waiting for a pass and you want to try to chase the pass as fast as possible. But what Isen does here is he puts himself between the chain and the location of his pass. So he's passing it backwards. So he's actually able to grab onto the chain. And even though he doesn't get the punch off fast immediately, the idea is still there, and it's really a strong method because again, the way you beat defensive chain is by breaking it apart, stunning one of the players or both, and then keeping them locked up, and all of a sudden you can push up. You have like either a 2v2, 3v2, or even 4v2 if you just leave them behind, which generally isn't the best option, but that's another point. So really good rollout from them, sort of putting the defensive chain in the forced terrible position where they have to boost through somebody, which is not what you want to do as a defensive chain. And that allows Nova to get the disc into control. A little bit of a... So Zesper is not feeling pressure here. The closest player to him is here. And then he's got... yeah, that's the closest player to him. And they got another player over here covering this guy. They got the goalie open. And they've got the player down here being covered, kind of. Not really covered, but he gets covered pretty soon as I'm getting punched out. The pass goes back to Zesper. At this point, just sort of not picking the passes very well. Instead of going back for a pass to this player who's easy open reset, he goes for like some juke on this block. Not a very smart move, but it happens sometimes. But yeah, definitely the highlight of this clip anyway is the rollout from Nova and how well it deals with the defensive chain. I'll go to the next clip. See Venom disc does get stolen by Oculusator, takes a shot. Unfortunately misses, and you see Oculusator actually goes and go for this, punches out Dimwit, and Soicy's able to get the goal. This is why having constant comms and clean comms and good comms is so important, because Soicy here does not have a lot of time to tell Oculusator, leave the disc, because you can see Oculusator is looking towards the disc, and then last second he turns, goes for Dimwit, punches him out, and that leaves Soicy an open shot, because if Oculusator had gone for the disc here, he would have had Dimwit right on him. Like you see, they were next to each other. So he would have had Dimmy right on him. He might have been able to get a shot off or maybe a pass off, but he would have been punched immediately, and so it would have been a slap at best. And so instead of doing that, you can see Soicy probably very clearly called this out, that he was behind him. I got the disc. And so Oculusator makes a split-second decision to, instead of going for the disc, he listens to his teammate, trusts him, and then goes for the punch on Dimwit, which leaves Soicy with no pressure and an open goal. So it was really good, fast comms from Skull-Crusader, very clean, and that's what won in this second round. So go to this game went to round 3. We have a so Skull-Crusaders first to miss a pass. A clear comes out from Venom. You can see clearly the best boost coming out from Nova. Unfortunately, they overshoot the disc a little bit, and Skull-Crusaders is able to recover it. This is something that I've said before in previous videos, but this is a really this is more of like an example of what not to do, whereas previous videos have had examples of teams doing it well. So when this clear happens, you can see The clear happens. These two players instantly get together. These two players are instantly together. This player's looking away from his teammate. This player's looking towards the stack. This player's back here. Skull-Crusaders isn't getting a boost together for at least another 2 seconds. Unless they get a leech, which they don't. Or they do, but he gets punched out. You can see they have three. Nova has 3 players here, all moving quite fast. And then Skull-Crusaders still has people just trying to get together for boost. These two players are almost together. This player's still by himself. This player's still by himself. So Nova definitely has a lot of time here. And this player, because you can see Venom here, looked back a little bit once he got punched out. So he should know that they don't have pressure for a while. They have time to get this disc, but instead you can see Nova almost like habitually just going straight back all the way to goal to cover the 3. Which does end up happening, but they could just take a slow chain. You can see here they kind of just break apart immediately. And that might have been because of a missed grab or whatever, but they need to, you can stay together, chase the disc, get possession of it. Because when you have this big of a head start on chasing the disc, you shouldn't be losing it like this. You see the players are kind of just, they're more focused on setting up a defense, which they do set up a defense, but they could just get the disc and turn it back into an offense instead immediately, which is something that a lot of teams, this is not a mistake that this is Nova specific, but there's a lot of teams have a really bad habit of trying to go fast and not just having control, sticking together and chasing disc to get control. So a slower chain with more control is better, probably like 4 out of 5 times than just raw speed. And it's up to the teammate who it's up to either Venom or the teammate Zesper who got punched here to call out that they have time. You have time, get the disc. Like, don't worry about like setting up a defense here because they should have been able to recover this disc and just control the disc there. Last clip for this game. Rollout from Skull-Crusaders. They have a good pass up top. Repass the Oculasator. Really good, fast, aggressive offense. Oculasator jumps over, gets a good pass to his teammate. His teammate again makes a juke and is able to score the goal, putting it a 1-point deficit. So what happens here is that so you can see the offensive chain. You're not the offensive chain. They didn't do a chain in this play. Nova did a split play, but they are able to get back together really quickly. And this chain makes a bit of a poor decision to chase the disc because while you are putting a lot of pressure on this player, all it takes is one good jump, like Oculasator did. He did like a jump pass, and all of a sudden that chain split up. The player who's already, so these two players are split up. They can't get back together for a little bit of time. So this player's got a little bit of time. He's got one player free floating towards him, but that still gives him enough time to carry it into the bubble, and he's able to get the point. So you can see here that even though he wasn't actually boosting, Venom was still pretty close to this player. And if you'd given him like maybe 2 seconds, by the time they'd reach Pebble, definitely, but maybe even before then, Venom would have caught up to him because of this slowness. So these two players should at least have one person split to cover that cross pass, and maybe even leave somebody back on Bowtie, so that if the back pass happens, he can react to it and try and pressure either this player or this player, depending on who it goes to. So there's definitely them being a little bit too all in on rushing Oculasator, trying to put a lot of pressure on him, and he is able to evade them and get the pass over his teammate again with another upside down duck, and is able to score the points for them. It's a really good match by Nova and Skull-Crusaders. Skull-Crusaders definitely on the come up. They've been getting a lot better and improving pretty well. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching.